The theme is reminiscing. And I'm sure you maybe run out of stories, but there may be a few more. Even if you've already told your best friend, you might use it again for the benefit of everybody else. But Richard Morgan has a game plan, and he'll describe it to you. Rich is my buddy, and has been a teacher for 30-some years. Rich was a cross-country guy, a band person, and a student government person when he was here on campus. Who knew he was going to be a successful football coach? But he was. And I think if he can do coaching, he can probably do coaching. Rich, you want to tell what your game's all about?
Okay, now what we have here, this is kind of a random night, I guess. We know that you all have stories to tell, and we know that if we all tried to tell them, we'd be here till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. So we're going to try to do it somewhat randomly, and the way we're going to do it is to put out 3 bowls. And these 3 bowls have little cards in them. The bowls are labeled, as you maybe can see or not, sports, student life, and adventures. And I will be pulling a card from the bowl, and it will be a group that was on this campus doing something. It could be an activity or a sport or whatever. And we're going to allow you first to be recognized by raising your hand if you actually were participating in that. And secondly, if one of you wants to speak and tell a story, tell an idea that you had when you were in that group, you can go right ahead and do it. The only limitation is you have 3 minutes, because we have a lot of cards here. And the way we're going to do this is by our official Juniata College class of 1964 timer. And as you can see, it is a 3-minute egg timer. And we're going to turn this over as soon as you start speaking, and when it's done, then you have to stop. So try to time yourself and try to get some coherence to what you're doing. I'm going to give this to Elaine Frazier, and she's going to be our official timer. And when she says time's up, you have to stop. Okay? And continue your story with someone else somewhere. Okay, and I'm just going to do this randomly. I don't know what these cards are or what they say or whatever. And I'm just going to reach in and I'm going to start with sports. And I'm going to pick one out here. And the first one that I'm going to pick out is football. Football. Would all the football players raise their hand? Okay, we have some over there. Okay, any one of you want to tell a little saga, a little story, anything about football? Anything that you want to relate to? Come on, Larry. He got something. I figured it out. Okay, you're going to speak into this mic and hold it close to your lips there.
Garfield Rose is not here, and he's an integral part of this story. Our senior year, we're going to Gettysburg, first game of the season, and they had a pep rally. So the cheerleaders are here, and we're all in front, and Coach gives a speech, and Gar comes standing. And Gar comes close to me, and he says, Lance, your zipper's down. So I know my zipper is down, but I don't trust Gar. So I'm trying to get behind him so he can't see. That's our story.
Okay, that kind of sets the tone now. I need to really apologize because I'm sorry. I'm too close. Chad told me to hold it very close to my mouth. Okay, so is that better? All right. The Emeriti, we need to hear from you. If you have something that you'd like to say. You're not tied into the 3-minute limitation, but Any one of you want to say a few words? Betty Ann? Okay, you can use the podium here, okay?
This is a treat in ways that you can't imagine. Ron, in later years, enjoyed gardening because you saw immediate results of what you did, even if it was just pulling out a weed. Teaching, those kinds of results come who knows when. And many have come as part of reunions. And Terry told me something I had completely forgotten. Others of you mentioned things that I have some memory of. I want to tell you Ron and my version of the steamroller. We're walking a dog, big surprise, a basset, and we are coming across 18th Street, approaching Moore. To our left, there is a body of students around a yellow thing. As the yellow thing turns down 18th Street, directly in front of us, we haven't yet crossed Moore. Coming up Moore is a cop car. No lights, no bubble, nothing. Pulls in behind the yellow thing. Both are going down 18th Street. And all of a sudden, the bubble goes, the noise goes, the lights go. You have never seen students move so fast in your entire life. And I've often wondered if there wasn't a way, if there wasn't some connection between that and the eventual tradition of storming the arch. Because you all are trying to get through that arch. Anybody remember? Or down the street behind or in Lesher. Anything to get out of the way of the cops. And we're just sort of standing there watching. I still don't know who stopped the steamroller. Ron knew, if I ever knew, I don't remember. But were you all aware of what would have happened if somebody hadn't stopped the steamroller? Remember what was at the foot of 18th Street? You're right. And the steamroller would have been in it. So we have enjoyed telling our version of that story as much as you have enjoyed telling your versions of that story. You're remembered for lots of other things, not just for the steamroller. So thank you very much. And I was astonished last night and thrilled at your gift. Like you, I care about the college, and it is wonderful when those of you who have experienced it are the ones who support it. Thank you.
We have another distinguished member here.
My comments are anecdotal. And what I was going to talk about a little bit this evening, Terry made him null and void by what he did last night. And I'm not mad at you, Terry. I was going to talk a little bit about your class image as I saw it, because I think it's a rarity in the cavalcade of Juniata classes. And I was going to point out two things: your competitiveness and your challenging nature. And that was dramatically demonstrated by what Terry had to say last night in that row of digits. And he scratched across that easel. And I think, therefore, in summary, this is a class that has an image it ought to be proud of. And that's what I want to emphasize.
Thank you so much. Professor Hepling? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
just a minute to talk about what goes on when you get old. The first thing you have to get used to is watching your golf score go up while it passes your bowling score going down. The second eye-opener is when you're called to go visit on commencement day. Watch your grandson get his law degree, watch your granddaughter get a medical degree, and leave you with whatever it was you were aspiring to professionally to them. The final thing I want to say is, win, lose, draw, old, young, whatever it is, there's nothing else quite like a Juniata student population. As you all know, both Louise and I are Penn Staters, not Juniatians, and we've always regretted that. and the one thing that I will go away remembering this year, as I have here every year before, is what we've been talking around campus about, a gold card, which accomplished certain kinds of things on behalf of the college. The gold card I'm interested in is the one represented by each one of you. Golden it is. Friendship, it truly is. Thank you for including us in the Juniata memories.
I think our Emeriti deserve another round of applause. Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have jumped the gun on the game, but that was precious. Okay, I think we left off with sports. Now let's just reach in here, and this would be student life, and this is a real potpourri. Choir. Anybody choir members? We have no choir members here? Aha. Okay, anyone want to tell a little story about choir? Okay, make one up. Here we go. No, you need a mic. Or you can sing it.
It's not really a story, but touring choir the people in touring choir never got to enjoy Toad between the class breaks. You know how you guys used to have that half-hour break? When we had chapel a couple days a week. But the other days of the week, you got to go to Toad between choir members had to practice. That's what our practice was. So we never really got to have that social interaction that you guys all had during that time. I know. And not only that, we never, ever saw an all-class night. We were always on tour when you had all-class nights. So there was never a touring choir member and participating in all-class night. And in the spring, we were out on tour most of the weekends. So we missed some things. But of course, we made good friends while we were on tour. But there was a price to pay.
These are the sacrifices that a lot of people don't realize musicians make. It's not an easy thing. Okay, let's go over here. Our next bowl is adventure. Okay, two echo over here. I'm sorry. Adventure. Now this again is things that you may have done other than your student life. So let's reach in here and we'll get an example of that. Okay, anybody from the class of 1963 want to comment on this reunion? That would be an adventure. Anybody? Who is here from the class of 63? Come on, guys. Work with me here. Okay, Dave, you want to speak? Okay. We'll keep it in the family over there.
Now, I know certain members of the class of 1964's planning committee thought the class of 1963 set a very, very high standard for contributions to Juniata College and the class gift. And I know you thought that we were really, really hoping that you would never surpass us. But that's the furthest thing from the truth. We wanted you to raise more money because your class, like our class, raised a heck of a lot of money for a heck of a lot of good students. And most of us in this room wouldn't have come to Juniata without some financial help. So congratulations to you guys.
That's really all for the greater good, that's for sure. Okay, we're doing, going back to sports again. Let's try this one out. Notice I'm not peeking. Okay, let's see what's on this one. Baseball. Hey, any baseball players in the crowd? I know there's some. Don't want to raise your hand, Randy? He left? Any other baseball? The other thing I remember about baseball is the field renovation. And you remember the old baseball stadium? You know, with the old wooden stands, and you know, sit there and whatever, and then, you know, it just wasn't a comfortable place to be. Okay, I'm sorry that there are no baseball stories. Let's go over to student life again. And randomly picking out here. Any arts majors? Any major in art? Anybody take an art course that they like to talk about?
You all have to take arts and humanities.
Okay, would you like to speak about that?
No.
Dan? Okay, wait a minute, you get the mic.
I'll turn that thing over. I want to talk about it now. No, what I remember about Steve Barbrash's class was he'd always show us these pictures and slides about art and, I'm sorry, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Hi there. He'd always do these slideshows of different art and whatnot, and he was showing us the Colosseum. And as you know, I believe he was of Jewish faith, but I'm not positive. But as he showed that one, he said, now if you look closely, it says Lions 10, Christians nothing.
I was telling Betty Ann Cherry that when I was a junior, I snuck in on a Barbash lecture when you had, what was it called? Great Epochs. And I was in tears. I sat there for half an hour and I just cried at the way he presented this beautiful photograph picture, this painting. And I couldn't believe how talented this man was and what he knew. Okay, back to sports. What we got here? We should have some of that mysterious music going on. Okay. Okay, these are the sports that were kind of called minor sports, but I never think of any sport being minor. Golf, tennis. Who played golf or tennis or anything like that? I know he did. Okay, raise your hand if you played golf or tennis. Anybody have a golf or tennis story? No? A golf story? You didn't play golf. All right, well, you give us a golf story.
The coach was Dr. Cruz, right? Coach was Ernie Cruz. Well, when our daughter came back here, she was on the tennis team, and he for that year, coached the girls' tennis team. And he said, and she said, they would never do it again because guys were so much easier to coach than girls. He would come home because they would grow a little temperamental, and then he would worry because one was mad at the other. Bless his heart, he just worked so very hard. So, man, you must have been easier on him than my daughter and some of the others.
Thank you, Gail. I don't know about you, but I remember Gail and Glenn playing sports, and then I wanted to start a team. I'd have both of them on my team. That's for sure. Okay, student life, I guess, right? Keep track of me if I lose track. I don't want to mess anything up. Okay, here we go. I'm going to pick this red one. Dining hall workers. Raise your hand if you were a dining hall worker. Some of you are afraid to admit that you did something. Would anyone like to tell a story about the dining hall?
No, I have no stories at all.
Why not? Anybody dining hall story? Okay, we have one back there. Here we go.
Waitresses.
I'm coming. Sarah Beth has a really good dining hall story.
Well, it was eating in the dining hall. So I'm this slow eater, and I'm waiting through my plate, and I look up, and the athletic guys are all done. I am now a very fast eater.
You do. You want to speak? I don't understand what you're doing. Okay, be clear. Yeah, you got 3 minutes.
I'm just, do you all remember the ties whenever the law went out that we all had to wear ties to supper? Y'all remember that? Do y'all remember the ties that showed up for supper? No, you don't remember? Oh, listen, the guys went downtown and they found a place where all the oldest ties in the world were. And they bought those ties for about 50 cents each and then put them on. Those ties, if you don't remember, were this wide and this short. And Dean Yowie went nuts. Y'all remember that? And what was really good was the guys got the ties downtown, that if you took the tie, and you know how a tie is sort of folded? If you opened the folds and flipped the tie up, remember, Gene? Anybody else remember? Some of the best naughty pictures in the world were on the ties. And we would sit at the tables and we would flash the tie.
I must have been somewhere else. Wrong door. Okay.
None of the rest of you remember, huh?
I remember the best thing in the world was being on a sports team and being on training team. Okay, we're back to the Adventure Bowl and trips to the cliff. Ooh. Okay, Al has one. Anybody else? How many of you went to the cliffs at some point? Okay, quite a bit. Al.
This one turned out pretty good for the boy who was on the edge. I think I had to read something like world history. That I thought was definitely boring. And I took it out to the cliffs and I worked ledge and you could get out to the very edge. And I sat there and started to read the history book on probably a nice warm sunny afternoon. At some point later I woke up. I'm still on the cliff and the book is oh my God. Don't read something dull on the cliff.
Somewhere there's a Pennsylvania Railroad car with a history book. Okay, back to sports. Okay, let's see what kind of thing we did here. Okay, men's intramural sports. Men's intramural sports. How many of you guys played intramurals? Some sort of, any particular thing happened that you would like to share with us?
Talk to Fraser about that.
Want to talk to you, Pat? No. Should I put this one away then?
No, there's too good a story there.
Oh, well, why don't you tell me?
It's because I've already talked too much.
I never gave a limitation on talking twice. Just talking long.
Pat Fraser and I graduated from Hollidaysburg High School. And the coach at Hollidaysburg High School was a fellow named Ralph Harden. Anybody remember Mr. Harden? When we graduated, Pat came to Juniata, I came to Juniata, and Harden came to Juniata to be the basketball coach. Big mistake. Really bad. And no one in our class would play for Harden. The only two guys that really played for him were Pat and some fellow named Ruben. Remember Tom? Yeah. And the guys who were really good basketball players wouldn't play. They played in the IMs. And then it got to be, there's a team in the IMs that's better than the varsity team. Y'all remember that? And then it was, we think there ought to be a game between the IM champs and the varsity guys. And it got started on campus, and I think we could have sold the gym out. And Harden said, absolutely not. And that was the end of the game. Thank goodness we didn't have that happen.
Thank you. All right, I guess that was what? Sports, okay. Make sure that I don't get out of sequence. Student life, student government, and any activity committees. We got a lot of people that run student government or activity committees. Raise your hand. Okay, anybody want to speak about anything? How about the Letterman concert? Okay, that would be fun. No. Thelma, okay, good, Thelma.
I was reminding Dan the other night about that, and he was telling me about the prizes they got up here with the autographs. I don't know who won that, but if you all remember, the Lettermen were a little late for the dance, and I was a little nervous about the whole thing. I can't remember why they were late. Were they going on a bus? They got lost? Oh. Well, fortunately, Dan was helping me with that, and he and I were sitting waiting, back to back, waiting for them to come. And what were we doing? It was getting later and later and later, and we finally went to Dean Yowie and said, what are we going to do? You know, they aren't here yet, and then when they arrive, we won't have time for the dance, so it happened to be the day of the time change. So we turned the clock back, and she left us stay up.
Wow, Dean Yowie let us later. That's amazing. I honestly say I don't remember that part. Okay, we have another one. Yeah, okay. Coming up. Okay, Gwen's going to speak.
I'm maybe you guys don't remember, but we had a hayride out somewhere, out in the boondocks somewhere, and I don't know whether we got stuck or for some reason we couldn't get back, and we were all collecting late minutes. And I was in charge of the activity, and I was going, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? And I got home, and we got back, and everybody has late minutes, and I'm going to charge it to all those people. And I said, I'll take them all. And she took them all away. So she was nice. I mean, she was nice.
She was nice. Okay. Anything else on that student government or whatever? All I can tell you from a personal point of view that my activity in student government was one of the most valuable experiences that I had on this campus, being vice president of the Senate, and therefore by default being the chairman of the judiciary. And that is quite a responsibility, and more than you can imagine. And many lessons were taught personally to that, so I can speak very much about that. Where am I? Adventures, okay. Let's reach in here. Another adventure. How about Raystown Lake? Okay. Yeah, the old Raystown Dam is what I'm talking about. Anybody make a tour out there? Nope, okay, we're going to choose another one then. How about the steamroller? Does anybody have a different perspective on the steamroller than Betty Ann did? Anyone like to speak about the steamroller? Anything? I'm not going to. How many of you were there? Okay, how many of you were there? Raise your hand if you were there. Okay. As you can see, it was a significant number.
Well, the moment has come, I guess. In real estate, they say location is everything. I think in life, genetics and timing is equally important. I visited with interest this morning the Hilda Nathan House. And the reason I did is because when my mother was a student here, she worked for Hilda Nathan, who worked for Calvert Ellis as secretary. And my mother, when she was here, was on the dean's list every semester. Some 24 years later, I come along, and I was on the dean's list most semesters. Dean May's academic probation list, Dean Heberling's probation list, and set a different standard. There are several versions, I'm well aware of the whole steamroller incident, and I really don't know that any of them are wrong, nor do I think any of them are in conflict with one another. There were multiple people involved, and I didn't get involved until I heard the commotion, and anything other than studying was, of course, to be preferred. And I remember going up there was a small group around it, and they, can we get it started, da-da-da-da-da. Of course, back then it was very easy to hotwire something. And they got it running, and that was an accomplishment, but not totally satisfactory. So they decided they would see if it would move. Yep, it would move. Now, I was not involved in any of that. So then they got the bright idea, well, how about panty raid? Well, I guess that was more appealing than what they had been doing. So I did not drive it out of its location up there. And what again, that is the timing. I did, however, find my way into the driver's seat because actually on those models there are two two handles. They're actually clutches. And that's how you turn the front wheel. And we were coming down Moore Street, and I am not exaggerating, people, every place there was to grab hold of, somebody was on it. I couldn't see for trying. I mean, there were just that many people on it. And every once in a while, I would feel the front roller hit something, and I would jerk it back. Well, the something was the curb. And of course, every little visit to the curb resulted in about a V coming out of it like that. And I was interested in Betty Ann's version because the first cop that came did have the red light on. That was the local cop. And he came and he pulled in front on a diagonal in front of the roller. And I didn't know how, I couldn't even see where the pedals were, let alone find them. And I was very concerned. And soon he became very concerned. And he backed the car into the middle of the road. And that's where he stayed, and we passed him. We weren't real concerned because the students, and I mean, I think everybody on campus was out there, had taken their bodies and they were up against the police car and couldn't get out. So we felt relatively secure. And then way down Moore Street, this is 5, 6, 7 minutes later, I see another red light coming up. And this was coming at a much higher rate of speed. I thought, we're in trouble. When he got near where we were, he turned the lights off. Now, by this time, we had turned left onto 18th Street, and we were headed down. And basketball was in season. I thought I was in shape. I felt obliged to stop this thing, as everyone else had the common sense to bail out. I felt an obligation to stop it. And the next to last person off, and I will not forget this, he looked at me, I looked at him, and I said, "You go," was Cam Auger. And he was one of the last ones off. I turned the steering wheel in toward the curb, knowing that it would eventually stop it. I jump off, and folks, I'm not exaggerating, I felt my feet come off the ground. I looked around, and there was the biggest state cop I have ever seen. I mean, it was like this, back. I mean, I was cuffed to this thing in just no time at all, and then he started after others who, of course, were taunting him, which wasn't the brightest thing in the world to do. So, like any other participants, I did have the opportunity to go downtown and meet Huntington's finest. The good news is, and that was brought up tonight, in fact, my roommate Rolf brought this up. I've been dating a girl in Huntington for some time, and it turns out that her father's brother was the captain of the Pennsylvania State Police. So as the charges went up the line, their attitudes sort of softened, and somewhere around 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, I was released, and I had heard that we were responsible for restitution. And I don't know how much, but I am told by many people this weekend that a hat was passed through all the dorms, and they actually got more money than was necessary to cover the cost of restitution. So I don't know if that's a fact or not, but the anecdote to this whole thing, I spent most of my adult life in a classroom teaching high school. And I guess maybe my second, third year of teaching, I never really told anybody I went to Juniata, but it was Christmas time. Colleges generally have their Christmas break before high schools do. I'm standing and like doing my usual thing to the students. I look out in the hallway, and there are 2 of my ex-students who had a copy of the Huntington newspaper. When they had gotten here, they somehow got a copy of the paper. Of course, there it was, with, name and everything. Yeah, right, good student. Sure. So, I know many people claim to be involved, and the answer is probably they were. I think everybody on campus was involved. involved at least as a spectator, and there were quite a few who participated in the borrowing and starting and operating, so the timing was such that I happened to be on it when it had to come to a stop. So that's my version of the story. Okay? You know what I've noticed in the last 50 years, as I get my copy of the Juniata and read it cover to cover, especially take interest in class notes, and this morning at the awards assembly, all these people have, amazing contributions and life achievements. Not once have I read anybody who began their career in crime here in Juniata. So, as a slide down the toe used to say, make a difference, and the legend began.
Now, obviously, because of the significance of that legend to our class, we went into a time warp. And being a Star Trek fan, I could appreciate that. Okay. Okay, we'll do one more. Is that one more, Rich? All right. We'll try sports again. And cheerleading. Do we have any cheerleaders? Okay, raise your hand if you're a cheerleader.
Come on, girls.
Carol. You have a cheerleading story, Carol? Yes, no?
But anyhow, go ahead, Maureen.
No, I gotta come back. You gotta talk into the mic.
Oh, okay. I thought my voice was pretty loud. No, okay. Maureen.
Okay, remember you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I can take it now. She'll take it.
Okay. All right, Marty's gonna tell us a cheerleading story.
Cheerleading.
Well, it's a tale of woe. So today we went over it and looked at the gym and brought back memories of the day that I fell cheerleading in the gym. And then 4 years ago, both knees replaced because of it. So that's my legacy for cheerleading. Oh, the other legacy was that I had to go to the infirmary, of course, because I had water on the knee at the time. And the doctor happened to be the father of a boy I had dated at Kiski School in the town I grew up in, which was really not fun either to go to the doctor to your old boyfriend's father. So.
That's the second favorite story I've heard about someone being examined by someone that they should ask it.
Okay. You know, during our illustrious career at Juniata 4 years, there was a couple, okay, that was called Ooey and Gooey. Wait a minute, I don't know how many of you remember them, but whatever you did, okay, they would always be around campus. It was an elderly couple, and they would take a look and peer at you all of a sudden. And this football field out here, this is really wide open now. I'm going, where are all the bushes? Because I was in the bushes a number of times. and they're gone. And this now is an open field. Because I remember getting down there and it was really surrounded by a lot of brush. And all of a sudden, you would see 2 beady eyes looking through the bushes. And they, well, 4 of them. That's right. 2 people. They get 4 eyes. I'm so sorry. And we named these 2 Ooey and Gooey. Gooey, don't you remember? What was I, the only one in the bushes? That was an adventure. There's also another one that involves another gentleman that's in this, but I'm not going to tell that one. Should I tell that one? Pete Radish? No, I don't need to say it. I won't do that. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, we're going to wrap it up now. Do we have any more comments? Rolf, do you have a comment? Okay. I hope it's in one of these categories. No?